Okay, are we good?
We're good when you're good.
All right, welcome.
Yep, so, yep, now you're live.
All right, welcome everyone to the October 24th meeting of the Advisory Committee on Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Human Rights. I'm just going to go ahead and have everyone go around and introduce themselves, make sure we have it for the meeting minutes. I'm Leanna Fellis, I'm the chair.
Katie Bryden, vice chair. Melissa Bopels, member. Rebecca Jones, member.
Debbie Laurie, city manager.
Jason Bird, I'm Housing Development Director for Penquist.
Great, thank you so much. Since we don't currently.
Oh, we're closing in. We're up to
making-
4. We're almost there. That's okay.
And we just were going around and having everyone give their names, if you would do that for the meeting minutes. Going to party. It's not that I didn't know if I asked you.
I pulled the distance.
I know, I feel really awkward now.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm late. I tried putting my dog to my house.
Courtney, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
Courtney O'Donnell, assistant city manager and HR director for the city of Bangor.
Thank you.
Gabrielle Wiley and resident social work student and employee at Acadia Hospital, an advisory committee member.
Got it all in there. Because we don't have a quorum at the moment, we are going to move past number 1, the approval of meeting minutes. So we're just going to jump right into our topic number 2, education, and that's going to be some presentations tonight. And I believe you said, Jason, you're up first with presentations and things like. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Debbie, for extending the invitation. She suggested I come and talk to you about our 2, maybe 2.5-ish housing initiatives that we're working on, with the hope that we can break ground soon. But I'll give you a quick overview, but happy to answer any questions you might have. We tend really to save money and not do the big 3D renderings of things, just because, you know, it's affordable housing is needed, and thankfully the planning board and the council often understand that and don't really need a big showy picture when it comes to our project, so that's helpful. The first I'll talk about is the just the letter size paper. There we go, with a picture on the exterior. This is Teresa's place at 22 Cleveland Street, formerly the Pine Tree Inn. We have acquired that property. I did so in the spring through a very strenuous process in which Debbie saved our soul a little bit with some and supported in the city council. Right, yes, right. That you don't get to spend money on your own. But the city council supported a gap that we had at the arguably the last half second of the project. And so we were able to use that money, and with state and Maine housing support, we've acquired the building. We're now in the process of finalizing the funding that we need to do the renovations on the building. And so we were sort of bemoaning earlier the fact that because we have federal funding in the project, it takes a lot longer than any one of us would like. We are at this point, though, because of the federal process, we are expecting, unfortunately, not to be able to open the doors or let new tenants come in until late winter, this upcoming winter, or spring of 24. So several months away still. Once we get through a procedural hurdle with Maine Housing, we will issue a limited notice to proceed. So we'll be able to start the work before we even finalize some of the funding, just because we know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. But the building, formerly known as the Pine Tree Inn, when all said and done, we will have 41 new homes for individuals experiencing homelessness. And so our goal is to model the service delivery after the Housing First approach, which I'm sure some of you have heard of. But the goal with that approach is to take individuals and focus first on getting them stably housed. And then from there, you have services on site that can work with those individuals on whatever the root causes were of the homelessness that they experienced, and then ideally allow them to stay as long as they need. So it isn't transitional housing, and it isn't essentially, someone doesn't move in with a shot clock. right? That says, okay, you've got 12 months, 13 months, whatever, because everyone's path is sobriety, everyone's path to better mental health or whatever, again, that caused the homelessness. It takes, winding paths and everyone has to go through that sort of in their own due time, right? So the Housing First model is proven to be one of the better in the past. Again, that transitional housing model hasn't borne out the results, I think, as a society that we want. So we don't want people to stay there forever. And in fact, we would prefer that they get stabilized, they get to a point where they can, they no longer need us, they no longer need the daily interventions, the daily connection with staff on site, and they can move to more independent housing. And the staff that are there will actually help them in that transition as well and search for that new home once they're ready. But again, it's going to be their home for as long as they would need. The 41 units will be a mix of either 1-bedrooms or efficiencies. So they're going to be relatively small. But it's still certainly, it's their home. It's 4 walls, it's their own kitchen space, their own bathroom. We'll have meeting rooms as well as additional facilities or other sort of community spaces within the building for, say, AA meetings or other support group meetings. If someone has an outside case manager, someone they would like to meet with, there will be offices for that. And we'll also have, because the units themselves are relatively small, we'll also have 2 larger community kitchen spaces. So if someone wants to cook a bigger meal for, say, 5 or 6 friends or something, they could do that and sort of rent out that space. But otherwise, it would be difficult, obviously, and inefficiency to pull that off. So we want to be mindful of that. We've been fortunate enough to partner with CHCS. So they'll essentially manage the property and as well as provide the on-site support services. And so we're going to be working on an interim or sort of a transition process. Once we open the doors, we won't have full funding until 2025 due to the legislature's passing of what was LD2 that then got pulled into the governor's budget. And so DHHS and Maine Housing are working on the establishment of Maine's first Housing First program. And so that'll be essentially the rubric by which organizations like CHCS can bill for Housing First or supportive service housing. So we're very, very thankful for that. And as a result, we hope that Bangor won't be the only community that sees a new Housing First like property spring up in the next year or so. I'll pause there on Teresa's Place. Are there any questions, thoughts, comments?
I have a question. So there are 41 bedroom or efficiencies. Are these all for individuals or
All for
people have,
individuals.
so people have families or partners?
Partners, maybe, under certain circumstances. 36 of the 41 units will come with vouchers. So that's a big plus. Sometimes there are unique rules around, depending on the source of the voucher, how big the home can be, how, all those kinds of things. But we have found that the goal being, we wanted to be able to do something relatively quick. But I turned to Deb because she and I have talked off and on about how long the project's taken, but relatively quick and relatively inexpensively to be able to try to maximize the number of individuals that we could do. And obviously the total project cost, once you add in the acquisition plus the renovation, if we were to build that, even that size from brand new, it would be double the expense, if not higher. So that's also what allowed us to score pretty well in a competitive round with Maine Housing funding. But so yeah, this is just primarily for individuals, but we will on a case-by-case basis look at
Thank you.
couples.
Okay, thank you.
That was a long-winded answer. I probably could have said that.
Thank you very much.
I had a second question. Obviously, if you're trying to do this on a budget, which I understand, it's difficult, especially now with the cost of resources, but we have a lot of disabled people who are homeless. And so is this going to be accessible for them, like physically accessible?
So the first floor certainly will be. We won't have an elevator to get to the second floor, but the first floor will have want to say 11 ADA units.
Okay.
I would ask you not to quote me on that, but a lot more than we need to have. But we will have accessible units inside. That is, while that's even the right thing to do, thankfully and rightfully so, Maine Housing, when they give us funding,
Mhm.
they say, yeah, you could do the minimum of say 2 units, but the reality is we're going to push you a little bit further and.
We need more than that,
Exactly.
more than 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say that that should be the standard citywide for housing,
Mhm.
just accessibility, but, that's good. I'm glad the whole first floor at the very least
Most of the first floor.
must fit.
Most of it.
Okay,
Well, well, I should say the common areas will certainly be, and then many of the new homes on the first floor will be, but not every, based on the size. In particular, not every bathroom could have the wheelchair radius,
okay,
but we often do add grab bars and do some other. I think there are 4 or 5 different rankings of accessible units, and so we often will, add a few extra amenities and features, but not worry about classifying them or checking the box. for
Right.
rating.
just try to increase it for people with
Yes.
limited mobility.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's important. Thank you.
I guess I want to build off that a little bit. You know, we're speaking to mobility issues, but what about individuals who might be neurodivergent?
Yeah.
You know, are there any steps being taken for individuals who might need additional supports in that respect?
So the support service delivery will be done by CHCS. I know that they, as an organization, they work with a lot of individuals with experiencing a lot of either mobility or, like I said, neurodivergent aspects of their life. So I'm certain that they'll be able to accommodate that. And I even want to say that those pieces are going to be sort of a work plan, I think is going to be prescribed in the Housing First model.
Mhm.
So if an organization like CHCS signs up or says, yeah, we will be your provider under this, I think they have to have a specific work plan for that population as well. So I'm confident that it will be addressed.
Can I ask one more question about CHCS? Sorry, I'm assuming you're done. I apologize. Will they be on site all the time or is there a central office? Is there a place where people will always know to go to reach their resources?
Very good question. So I gave the building layout here, which I didn't walk through, but this is our future plans, but the main door, the main entrance, the plan is a couple of things. One, we're going to have door control because many times someone who's experiencing homelessness is motivated, encouraged, and will, they're on their path. If they let their friend couch surf, that becomes obviously an issue, or at least opens up an issue. So we will have appropriate fair housing rules and regulations, but we are obviously going to be mindful of just allowing guests in and there are a couple other models like Florence House in Portland and others who have done this across the country that have been able to sort of walk the appropriate line between this is their home, they have a right to have a guest, but at the same time, we obviously don't want to invite individuals in that could be doing something that could disrupt everyone else's peace and tranquility. There is just off of the door that you can see on the shorter side of the building, there is actually a built-in reception desk. And so we will have someone there in the building 24/7. During the, and I didn't bring the schedule, but Dale at CHCS has come up with a unique idea in that there will be staff trained coverage during most of sort of the daylight or traditional hours that people are up and around. After hours, the thought is that we would have a sort of unarmed, for lack of a better term, set of eyes and ears. And that could be a security company or someone else who doesn't have a license or a certification necessarily to be able to work with somebody with, say, who's experiencing mental health crisis or something like that. And that was the current design is intentional because those staff are very hard to find, especially awake overnight hours. And so we could just, the thought being have an established set of eyes and ears with appropriate cameras in the hallways, that kind of thing, to then be able to alert fire and EMS if there is an issue, or also have a 24/7 manager or someone that they could call should they need additional support or call somebody in to assist somebody.
First of all, thank you very much for that. this seems like a really amazing opportunity in terms of there needing to be sort of an opportunity for training.
Mhm.
Obviously, you say that, finding overnight awake support is challenging,
Yeah.
but just in terms of like working with the local colleges or individuals maybe that are themselves,
Mhm.
sort of getting their footing and looking for new employment opportunities.
Mhm.
Seems like a really cool opportunity to provide that training.
That is a really, that is
Yeah.
a really unique idea. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I have a meeting with Dale later this week, so that will be something I'll bring up.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Jay.
Anyone else have any other questions related to this project?
Yeah, my question is how do you choose which individuals go to these homes?
So CHCS will establish a lease up policy, right? And the thought being that it's not going to be done in a vacuum, but they're going to be, because they're heavily engaged with the city and with area organizations like the Shelter and Hope House. I believe it's still the by name list, I think is the theory that area organizations come together and communicate around some of the hardest to house populations. And so they have data on individuals that have been homeless the longest, right? Or otherwise, perhaps based on
Risk factors.
Risk factors,
It's a
yeah.
risk based.
It used to be VI SPDAT. or
It's not
something.
the expedite.
It's not anymore, no, but I don't know what the ranking is, but there is an assessment of that individual and their needs and who is perhaps the most vulnerable. But the idea being that those individuals in a housing first model would get first priority because not only is it a safe place for them to be, but there's additional on-site supports versus just, many times we have a scattered site model as it exists in Bangor right now. Case managers are running all over the place,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And you rely on a landlord to then call you and say, hey, so-and-so had not paying their rent or they're, hadn't seen them in weeks, that kind of thing, right? But here, we're going to see them every day because they're walking down the hall, doing their laundry, or, ideally being able to interact with other people in the building. And so the goal will be to address the hearts of the house first. We will be taking it on a case-by-case basis, though, absent. We're working on some funding with DHHS in the interim before the housing first money becomes available. Because from day one, we want to be able to do that. Absent that, the funding to be able to provide that 24/7 coverage, though, we may have to gradually ease into that once that program is launched, but we haven't crossed that bridge yet.
Any other questions? All right. Next question.
Okay. And then we're going to take an entirely different turn. We're going to do a 180 on this. In that we're going to look at housing that is non-supportive, more traditional family or older adult housing. With that, there's a big caveat though, of course, but I don't really think you can see on the map here, but we bought 6 acres in Bangor, right behind Mary Snow School a couple of years ago. And we have received full funding for what we're calling Milford Place, which is the sort of lighter area here at the bottom. That is on Milford Street Extension, just before you get to Mary Snow School. That property is, as I said, fully funded and should have started construction 6 months ago. We're going to start in the spring. The city has been very supportive and has provided us over $500,000 in ARPA money that we are actually going to be, if we haven't already, broken ground very soon on some of the infrastructure pieces for now to get a head start in the spring. But that building will come online, or we'll be leasing that building up in about 2 years. The plan for that building is 40 new homes for older adults. So those are 55 and older. And while we will have a resident services coordinator on site, that property won't be for a vulnerable population in of itself. We do have a set aside. We have 8 units that we've determined, or we've decided based on criteria that we will set aside for individuals that are experiencing homelessness, and we'll work with an area organization once they place them to ensure that they have the adequate supports that they need to remain stably housed. But if you're looking at sort of a spectrum of severity, Obviously, individuals that need the most supports ideally would be able to go to Teresa's Place, but Milford Place are individuals that have perhaps, the severity or the need and or what their sort of treatment plan or their path to full sustainability or sustainability is a lot shorter perhaps. And so they are going to be the best to reside in Milford Place. The property in the back, Essex View, we have submitted our financing application to Maine Housing. It is a very competitive round. We'll know some point between now and Thanksgiving if we are selected for funding, but that property will take almost 3 years before we can fully lease it up. That's because it takes a very long time to build that property will be actually, let me back up. It's the biggest we've ever built, but it's a 40 new homes for families. So that will be a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom homes. And again, we'll have a set aside for individual or families in that case experiencing homelessness, with the goal of being able to provide, I think it would be some of the first housing for homeless families or families experiencing homelessness in Bangor in a very long time.
Mhm. When did you say, so you submitted the application?
We
to Maine
submitted the
Housing?
application, that will take, if all goes according to plan, up to 3 years before the building will be ready. And then we could have families moving in.
Thank you. What is the projected rent on, or the cost of one of those units?
So it will range. It will ebb and flow a little bit between now and when we actually do lease up, but in either case, in either property, it's the income levels are 60% or less of area median income. The easiest way for me to compartmentalize that for a single head of household, they would have to be earning a little bit less than $35,000 a year to be eligible.
How much is that per hour?
It's 16 and change.
Yeah, it's 16 and change.
Yeah.
Okay.
As
16
somebody
and change.
who made that not that long ago.
Yeah. So the when you go to a family, it changes because of household size. And then if it's a sliding scale, if there are 2 adults, or say 1 adult and 2 children, it varies. I could send you a chart or break that down a little bit, and so the committee can see that if that's helpful afterwards.
Yeah.
It's nuanced in that, but we also have a category where we have a subset that we rent to individuals or families, depending on the property, making 50% or less of area median income. And for comparison's sake, if you are eligible for a voucher, project-based or housing choice voucher, then your income can be no more than 30% of area.
I think the chart will be helpful.
And what you see today will change, like I said, because HUD promulgates new rent restrictions and rules and rates every spring usually. So that's one thing to be mindful of.
So really, this is targeted at the lower income population, where it's not really touching middle.
The missing middle.
The missing middle, right? Yeah, there are no larger there are some programs available, larger subsidies to be able to offset the cost to be able to build the construction. That's primarily available to up to 60% area minimum income. But Maine Housing, because of legislature, the previous legislature is passing other more middle income housing that I think we probably can only produce 50 to 60 units across the state per year.
Wow.
Yes. The cost of a new unit of one of in one of these buildings is just for rounded numbers, almost $300,000 when you add in all the costs associated with it.
Are there any questions about these 2 projects?
Not specifically these projects, but you talk about the cost per unit in each building. and how few you can produce per year in the state.
Mhm.
Yeah, and when we're looking at the need, is there a plan to be working with the University of Maine? Because I had the privilege to tour their Bio 3D home last Monday. Absolutely incredible. Like if anybody else here has an opportunity to do that. Is there a plan to work with them?
There is
On
a
this?
plan and there's already funding.
Yes.
So we're gonna be
Good.
their first customer once their new machines are up and running.
Good,
Yep.
yeah, because we need to be looking at that for creating like not just low income housing in Bangor, but like middle income housing as well.
Yes, yes. So we have a
Yeah.
pilot project where we will essentially purchase, or they'll print for us 9 homes for individuals that are experiencing homelessness. And that will have, similar to Teresa's place, there'll be services available for that as well. The timeline on that is fluid, I'll say.
Yeah.
They just installed a very big, probably double the size of
Yeah, their new
current
printer. Yeah.
The rest of the homes may wait until their new factory of the future is built. But we are anxiously waiting, one, to get through the CDS process, the funding process that we have, with HUD as the cognizant agent or the fiscal agent for that. But we could be, they could be ready as soon as next spring, a couple of them, the first. wave.
Okay. That's encouraging.
Yes. And we're already working with them on the next phase. So these buildings in the larger scale are 3 and 4 stories, right? That's the future of the 3D printed model, where we can print these in sort of Lego blocks and be able to deliver them
Yeah.
a lot faster and a lot cheaper.
Yeah,
First in the world too, and the technology up there is amazing.
yes, yes, it is. Thank
Any
you.
any other questions or comments or anything? No, this is really helpful. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you so much for coming in and presenting to us.
Yeah.
This is, it certainly helps us, look at what's happening coming down the road.
Yeah, and thankfully there are others working on housing not only in Bangor, but the region, but
Yeah.
it's just expensive and takes a long time.
Yeah,
I'll get Debbie that chart with a little bit of an explainer, and then if you have other questions, certainly don't hesitate to reach out.
Can I just
Don't
ask?
feel it. I guess.
And then.
Yeah.
I know, I was gonna be
Just kidding,
like,
I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
math, I can figure it out, but just before you leave.
Sure.
Where, I feel like, I'm like,
You wanna know what school
You're
is?
gonna take your glasses.
no, I can
Yeah.
see where the school is.
Oh.
Where's Essex Street? Like, how are obviously.
Essex is gonna, yeah. She's got it.
It says Essex Street right here.
Oh,
And then Broadway is essentially on the other parallel on the other side.
okay, I'm just trying to get a view in my head of this Essex Street.
So we're, I think it's Momentum now, is.
Yeah.
We can bring it up
here.
on the map.
No. Yeah, go with the momentum. Keep going.
Anyway, so.
So Momentum, I can't remember the previous name, but they support individuals with
Intellectual
intellectual or,
developmental
developmental
disabilities,
disabilities are here. And you go around the corner, Mary Snow School is here, the highway is up here, Essex runs
Okay.
right here, and then parallel to that is Broadway, right here.
Right,
And what isn't shown, we have a smaller lot across the street of Milford Street Extension that is going to be suitable probably for that first
3D home.
3D printed, well, not
it's in
the 9
between.
homes, but the
No.
stackable, but the stacked,
Behind it.
yep, the stacked
Yeah.
high rise.
in between momentum and Maris now. That chunk, that where we're,
That's what you're saying.
Yes, yeah, the field, yeah, there's
Yeah.
essentially a field there.
Yeah.
That bigger property is, I want to say, over 4 acres that we're putting, it's almost 5, actually, they were putting these 2 bigger
That
properties.
land was so big back there.
that was more my, like, I was like, I can see the back of Maris now. I see the
Yeah.
parking lot and the soccer field, like, where is this gonna fit? But there is that strip
just
that
enough.
goes around.
Yeah.
Cool, they're cool.
so I have another question now that we're talking about space.
Sorry, Jason, I really.
That's all right, that's all right.
We're gonna hold you hostage.
Everyone on the agenda, I promise.
Besides, like, obviously, with this place, you're talking about there being like a shared kitchen area For this other location, is there talk about there being any sort of community space?
Sorry, yes, I completely glossed over that. In
Not
both,
just inside either. I'm talking about outdoors
Outside,
because
outdoors, yeah.
green space is super, super important for people's
is.
mental health. So like, if there gonna be spaces for, yeah, soccer field, we'll take the soccer.
Playground
field.
on Main, no, they're fine.
Is there gonna be spaces for like gardening, flowers, vegetables, like a community shared garden, stuff like that, that's going to help people connect?
yes, absolutely. We have gardens at all of our properties. But yes, certainly so on Milford Place. If you look closely, you can see that Essex View, which is the second phase that we're calling it, the family
Yeah.
property, that is a lot tighter because we have a
Yes.
lot more parking that has to be there. And the lot is otherwise tight. But with that said, there are a few instances for that for a variety of reasons, because we have to unfortunately for liability reasons, having a playground isn't suitable, but
That's okay.
there are good friends across the way. The Mary Snow School has public space. But part of the reason why this site is so good is that it is close to parks
Yeah.
like Dakin Pool
Right.
and Broadway Park.
Yeah.
And those things. So
And
they're all
that's-
within
that's
walking
fantastic.
distance and yeah, so.
For families.
But on site, but the other reason why we really love this site is that the Bangor Community Gardens is sort of right here.
Yes, it is very
Yep,
close.
and so once we're closer to operations, and I'm gonna try to convince Maine Housing that we should be able to, through the property's operations, offset the cost of the raised beds at the community gardens. But that's a little bit down the road for now.
Okay.
I
That's
really
cool.
didn't have a question, but now I really do. have.
Yeah.
Have
All
you
right.
received any pushback from the property owners near here regarding this?
There has been, and it's not dissimilar to any other, neighbor who has questions or concerns about, what they're gonna see in their neighborhood. But I think that on balance, though, the planning board, the council, and the rest of the city have been very supportive. And I think we've gone through and had probably 4 planning board approvals on various changes because the world has changed a lot. But every time there have been, neighbors that have voiced opposition. But, I think that on balance, people see the need for it and we can thankfully rely, not because of me, but our organization's good reputation in terms of the quality of the housing that we provide. So.
I know the term affordable housing can be very controversial in some circles.
Can be.
But
Shouldn't
I
be.
agree on balance,
Mhm.
the need,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thanks. One last call. Anything else? Thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Stick, because we're just gonna show, you wanna grab the.
You sure
next
what?
thing.
Review of the.
I don't know that
housing
you've seen
progress
it yet.
webpage.
What are we sharing?
We haven't pulled it up yet.
Oh,
It is
okay.
the housing progress
So Rick,
webpage.
you are. Sorry, Courtney.
That's okay.
No.
Because you make the page, Jason.
I saw a link,
No, you're over there.
but I didn't click on it. Yeah.
To the left.
Down 3 or 4.
All right,
All right, I just have to share this.
No, I know.
message just real quick.
because you made the list, Jason.
Did I really? Oh,
You did.
There we go.
Understanding the need for housing and good information on housing and kind of the progress that's being made. The number of folks, on the Community and Economic Development Department, including folks up here in our office, pulled together sort of a snapshot of housing progress so that if folks wanted to know what was going on and what was permitted and what changes have been happening, they'd have one place to go to. What we are doing is we are now identifying by quarter the number of dwelling units that are coming online. So for the first quarter of the year we're in right now, which runs July to September, we brought 30 units online. Our entire prior fiscal year, we had 85 units come online. And I think the next piece is the one to really be looking at is we have 383 units that have been approved and pending some form of completion. And do you see any addresses on there?
No addresses.
Milford Street Extension,
Oh, yes.
40
yeah,
units of
not-
affordable senior housing.
Yes.
So that's kind of, that's one of the projects, the first project that Jason was just talking about. We have 4 units on Larkin. We have the 60 units on Lancaster. As you likely all know, that project has been stopped for the moment. We have another 60 units on Broadway that are under construction. We have 4 units on Fruit Street, 44 units on Ohio Street. Cleveland Street, that's the permanent supportive housing that Jason spoke of, the Teresa's Place. We have the 16 units of the tiny home that are under construction. We have Milford Street Extension, the affordable family housing. And then there's another phase. So I've gotten the phases on there twice. Oh, no, I don't. That's the 40 units. We also have Sunset Avenue. That is an affordable senior housing project that Bangor Housing will be working through. And then we have 4 additional units of supportive housing that are slated to be completed this month. And then lastly, we have another 20 units. So what you do see, kind of to Leanna's point of the missing middle, is we see some good affordable senior housing, we see some supportive housing, we see market rate housing, we see tiny home parks, we see affordable family housing out in the future and some supportive housing, but the missing middle is kind of very evident in that list. We also went ahead and included the financial support that we provide. And, you know, to Jason's point, this isn't necessarily all encompassing, but for example, we've done some ARPA funds related to affordable housing. We also we're a community development block grant entitlement community. So we can do a lot with home ownership and housing and tie it to median income needs. So we've done down payment and closing. There's a C missing. It says losing cost.
No.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, closing costs
I
are
would
losing
have
costs.
like-
You don't get them back. So, yeah.
I mean,
They don't appreciate it.
Yes,
So, yeah.
we've done a bunch with heat pump and weatherization with individual homeowners. We've got residential rehab. We've done some larger affordable housing projects through ARPA last year, as well as affordable housing with CDBG. The other thing, for example, Jason talked about that the city, through our CDBG program, often provides financial support to close the funding gaps related to Cleveland Street, for example. But I'll also say on the other projects, we actually provide a relief from tax payments. So, for example, on the family housing, the city has agreed, because the way the deals are structured, they're a taxable entity. But in order to ensure that the operating costs associated with maintaining that affordability level remain at a level that can be covered by the rent, the city agrees to reduce the property taxes. So for the family housing, we've agreed to take 25% of the property taxes instead of 100%. So that's additional financial support that isn't necessarily get captured here.
And you've been supportive of that, or the city has, historically, of all the others too. Now it's my turn to jump in with one thing, and
Okay.
this is a soapbox moment, certainly. But I think, and I don't even have a request in front of you, so this is completely ad hominem.
I'm not gonna sign
But
that.
I said this publicly before, but I feel like certain news outlets do not give the city justice in terms of the effort that's being made around affordable housing and housing just in general. Whereas my organization and others that are trying to do affordable housing actively get our projects killed in other surrounding communities, right? But instead, the city staff and the council see the value in affordable housing and obviously financially support it. So I think that you guys are light years ahead in identifying what's there, the gaps that are still there, and looking at even the regulatory changes that you referenced are major hurdles that have been cleared versus other communities, you know, will only come sort of in when the legislature pushes them, right, through statewide action. So thank you.
Thank you.
And keep it up and just keep doing more and more. of it.
On the webpage here, do we define the terms that are being used in the chart above, like what market rate is or what permanent supportive?
No,
housing
we
is?
don't, but we should. Yeah.
Because I would argue that
Yeah.
market rate is
It's very
unaffordable.
broad. Yeah.
I would say that it's extremely unaffordable for anybody that lives here and would like to buy or even rent a home here in Bangor. People are getting priced out. So market rate you
Something
know,
else
if you're
we
creating
can-
market rate housing, then
I mean,
who's that for?
But any supply helps, right? Because if we're able to address the supply issue, then in theory, the scarcity will go down and those that are doing it for profit wouldn't have as much of a motivation or a clear ability to raise as quickly or as much as they have.
If we lived in a closed system, then sure, but we don't. We live in a globalized system and people are moving all over the place.
Very true.
So I truly don't believe that increasing the supply is going to make that much of a dent in the cost, because we also have the issue of greed.
Mm.
And when these are privately owned developments, people are always going to be looking at ways of how can I make more money off of this?
Right.
And that is why the market rate is so high.
Yeah.
So I think setting a definition for that, or even a limit as to what the market rate should be, would be something worth looking at.
That's above my pay grade.
well, and to this question, I guess, you know, you've got market rate listed. This is why I think having a definition or something in there is gonna be important, because who is defining what is market rate? Is the
Correct.
city coming in and saying that, or is it someone going out to Zillow and seeing what Zillow is saying? You know, I think that would definitely be part of the, good to have clarification about what,
Yeah.
who's defining that.
Agreed. Jason spoke to, we just tried to list, all of the actions that we've taken as it relates to regulatory barriers to advancing housing. We have, you know, until Jason came forward with Teresa Place, we had not defined permanent supportive housing, for example, in our zoning. So we got that added into our zoning, it's properly defined, and we've actually recently expanded the allowable zones for permanent supportive housing. So in general, we started, you know, to try to address the need for Jason, and then we expanded beyond that. We have allowed for multifamily and mixed commercial residential in 2 major commercial zones. One of the things that they heard quite a bit when they were doing the public outreach related to the comprehensive plan is, what are we gonna do with the Bangor Mall? What are we gonna do with the Bangor Mall? So we changed the zoning so that residential is now allowed in the shopping, the types of zones the Bangor Mall area falls into. I'm not gonna use the acronyms because I can now spew them off, but I don't feel good about it. Obviously, we need to come into compliance with our mobile and manufactured home park language. We, as a community, have enacted all zone change to comply with LD 2003. That was the broad sweeping changes at the legislative level, trying to ensure that there could be greater density and greater availability for parcels for the development of housing. The city had until January 1st, I believe, to have that in place, and we've had that in place now for a bit.
You already had several pieces already.
Yeah, we had
before
already-
even their legislation.
The accessory
passed.
dwelling units for example, was a big topic around that, and we'd implemented that several years earlier.
At last night's city council meeting, I know it was gonna come up, I guess, I didn't see that, but there was a, to, increase the amount of CDBG, I know I got that wrong.
Yes, you got it
Funding.
right.
Sweet. To not only allow it to extend to manufactured homes, but they were looking at actually increasing the amount that someone could get because the cost of housing was also going up. Did that move?
Yep.
That portion, the increase?
Yep, that went up to 25,000.
So I think that's important for everyone to know as well as that.
And as soon as we adopted that, so we did it because obviously we had mobile homes was not an eligible purchase under a CDBG program, and really, but in many cases, that is an achievable, attainable home ownership option for an individual who may need financial assistance with closing costs, et cetera. There are other types of homes that fall into what they call manufactured home definition. And we're like, well, we know that mobile homes is kind of the primary one, and we want to get that on the books. And we kid you not, today, we've got a request from somebody for tiny homes.
Oh, that was discussed in the
I know.
business meeting,
So we
right?
were,
Yeah.
so we wanted to get the mobile homes, so we're gonna be coming back and making additional
Yeah.
revisions. We knew we had mobile homes needed to be addressed.
Mhm.
So we'll be coming back with other revisions, and I think Robin had alluded to that during that meeting.
Mhm.
Um,
So something you were talking about, which is the cost of things like that, you know, in some, we are making motions in some places by acknowledging the fact that housing is so expensive right now, and those who desire to move towards housing, we are putting those things in place. So if you have, as I always say all the time about this committee, is that we have the ability to advocate for things. So if you know people who are looking to get into housing, pointing them to the city of Bangor and this kind of programming, and the fact that they're saying, trying to get into affordable house, like the housing market, have you corrected it? Yeah, like
Yeah.
we'd hoped.
That's a great resource. And if you
And-
continue modifying it,
Yeah,
yeah.
and what you'll see is so if you can scroll back down for a minute too, Courtney, under the financial connections, those are all live links.
Oh,
So if you want to know what and we did get some feedback, that we didn't have, I think, under the down payment and closing cost assistance, when you go to the program page, it doesn't have, it says subject to income limits, but it doesn't have the income limits. So that was raised. So click through the page. If there are things that you think are missing, please let us know.
I'm sorry, did you say that's the actual policy on there now?
Yeah, it's the actual application and everything.
Application I could find, the policy was.
I don't know that the policy's there, but what
That
it
became the
doesn't
issue.
clarify is what
Yeah.
the income eligibility is.
Yeah, so at least with my experience, wasn't difficult for me to find the application. It was
Yeah.
the actual policy
Okay.
itself, which talked about the limitation
Okay,
of what counted and what didn't count.
okay. All right. We'll
Because
add
then you're
that too.
fielding applications,
That you can't fulfill. Oh,
Sorry, I'm
homeowner
going-
assistance
I'm
programs, I
saying,
think. is
I'm
what it
going rogue. Oh, yeah, no, it circles right around.
is.
Well,
So that got brought up, but
Yeah.
just know that we're working
yeah,
through that.
so those are live.
Yeah, so if we continue down, we've reduced parking requirements. I believe we were the first community in the state to allow for tiny home parks. We've made changes for the allowances of boarding homes. Boarding houses is a good option for a number of individuals. It's not a great fit for everybody, but for some people it does work. We allow greater flexibility on non-conforming properties. We talked about that one. We reduced lot size and setbacks. In 2019, we enacted accessory dwelling units.
Is this replacing the document you shared with us last time?
Correct.
Got
So we tried to make it more dynamic, more interactive, and make it relevant that it needs to be kept up. So what's next? I think we've passed a couple of the what's next. So we just did those last night. So those need to pop up. But we've done the short-term rental regulations. The housing study bid is getting ready to go out. And all the bullet points underneath that will identify what we're asking for to come back. We have pre-approved building plans that will be going out. So if you as an individual want to build a home, or we're actually going to have one of them be an accessory dwelling unit. To walk in the door and say, I want to do an accessory dwelling unit on my property. You'll be able to, we'll hand you the stamped plans. So there's no cost associated for you to be able to do that. It's pre-approved, it meets code, you have no fuss, you just need to go and do that work. We're working on the rental registry and licensure program. We're gonna be looking at sprinkle systems and heat pumps for multifamilies, other potential co-living and co-housing opportunities. And we're working to look at what properties we have for reuse. So there are some conversations that we're having that we just can't have publicly because of where they are. So I know that feels awkward because the one thing I'm gonna say is the one that we're looking at really closely is the missing middle. Because nobody's gonna come in and do the missing middle. The city's gonna have to step up and try to help facilitate that. You can't get federal funding for the missing middle per se. You're likely not gonna get a market rate developer for missing middle. So how can we help facilitate addressing that area? And, people can refer to it as workforce housing. Everybody has a term for it. Generally, we're looking at that, 120 to 150% of area median income. So trying to fill in that gap that is huge.
It
So
is huge.
it is huge.
And it's a population too that really does need support. Like I know a lot of people, young families, they're my age. I turned 30 literally the end of this week. And
Birthday.
thank you. And they're looking at having to leave They don't want to, but they can't afford to stay here. And these are people who are working full-time jobs. They work in healthcare, they're teachers, they're,
Yeah.
you know, they're educated and they want to stay in the city, but
I
they
mean,
can't.
You know, when you talk about manufactured homes, if you're putting those in any of the communities, the lot rent.
Correct.
Yeah.
Crazy. You know,
To,
so
to
there's-
place a single wide home on your own land, even with a reasonable sort of well and septic design, it's still $200,000 now.
Yeah.
Brand new.
It's a lot to factor
It
in.
is. So we're trying to be inventive and creative. And having every conversation with anyone who wants to have any conversation. But we really do understand that the missing middle is where sort of we can make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Because we have the partners in Hanquist and in Bangor. Housing Authority to kind of address those that come with the federal dollars.
Mhm.
And we know we have developers working on the market side, so. Movement.
Yeah.
So.
You want to be
Now you
mindful.
can
of
leave if
time.
you want
Yeah, I
to.
was just gonna-
I told you, you don't have to stay a half hour and I've already kept you.
That's all right.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you all.
Thanks
Thank
so much.
you.
Really appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Thank
See
you.
you.
We want to move on to the disability employment awareness discussion board appeals. We think one's gonna take more time than the other.
I just want to give an update that Theron will not be able to join us.
Okay. Well, I'm in here for the long haul, so if you wanted to jump to the Board of Appeals, our city attorney is here to join us.
Trying to be mindful of everyone's time. We're
Oh,
getting on in the evening.
I
Oh.
don't have any technology or handouts. I
That's
apologize.
That's
What
okay.
I think I'm gonna be talking about is pretty straightforward and easy.
Chicken.
Is it just about chickens?
No, if I
So-
recall correctly, what brought this was the story that was in the Bangor Daily.
Yeah.
And we were just, you know, as a committee, we tried to make sure we are understanding of all things. And if there's things that we should be looking at or other potential pitfalls or other places, you know, we just want to be a part of the process
Right,
and learn more about what happened in this situation.
okay.
I think that's really what we're kind of hoping
Yeah.
to hear about.
Well, the chicken case was one type of case in the, when people need reasonable accommodation under the Federal Fair Housing Act. And that would be, the municipalities are considered housing providers and they are required to make exceptions to zoning standards and ordinances that may affect housing.
Can I just put a pause? Does everyone here know what we're talking about right
No.
now? Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
you want me
Could
to
you give a brief overview of what happened and everything?
In the chicken case?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's very mysterious for.
Well,
Yes.
there was a handicapped individual, a 25-year-old, and his mother wanted wanted emotional support chickens for him. And he was clearly handicapped. He was blind and had other disabilities. And so she contacted the city and we were the legal department is the liaison with the Board of Appeals. And there was an ordinance in the city that said you cannot have any fowl or sheep or swine or cattle in any part of the urban residential area of the city. And this person lived in URD 1 in one of the urban residential districts. So she's called and wanted an accommodation so that her handicapped adult son could have 6 emotional support chickens. Strangely enough, this very similar thing happened 3 years ago. And the Board of Appeals addressed it then. So we actually had a template to go to for this time when it happened. Now, so what happens is that we have that ordinance and the ordinance needs an accommodation to accommodate the handicapped individual. So what the handicapped individual what the person needs to do is file a 1-page application that we provide with the Code Enforcement Office for a request to the Board of Appeals for a reasonable accommodation under that Fair Housing Act, which is built into our code. We recognize that sometimes these things need reasonable accommodations. And so In this case, my office, I provided her with the one-page application and indicated that we would be willing to waive the fee, the administrative fee, application fee. But she didn't like that. She seemed to maybe not understand the process, and she didn't speak with me on the phone. She instead filed a complaint with the Human Rights Commission saying that she's being discriminated against because we wanted her to fill out the one-page application, which we would have helped her with. But it went to the Maine Human Rights Commission. It went through that process. It was dismissed, finding no discrimination, that we have our process and that's the process that should be followed. And then once that happened, then she did the one-page application, came before the Board of Appeals, and the accommodation was granted. The article in the newspaper kind of gave a spin on it that I wouldn't necessarily agree with, because it is an easy thing to do. If I don't know if maybe I wasn't quick enough to get back to her originally, but I did. She had the application and the indication that the fee was waived and that I'd be willing to assist her in filling out the application. It's just basic information. It basically, what's the name and your address and stuff, and what is the ordinance that you want the accommodation from, and what do you want for the accommodation? That's all it needs to be filled in. So when they come before the Board of Appeals for a reasonable accommodation, they have to show three things. They have to show that the person is handicapped under the meaning of the Fair Housing Act. They have to show that the accommodation requested is necessary to afford that person an equal opportunity to use and enjoy a dwelling. And the third thing they have to show is that the accommodation requested is reasonable. 3 years ago, when the applicant made their request, it was denied. By the way, the whole first element of whether the person is handicapped, that may involve medical records or health information. So what we do is we take care of that during executive session. So we would open up the meeting, go into executive session where it's not public, where it's confidential, and go over the medical records or the health information in executive session. Have whatever questions that the board may have for the applicant is invited in. In this case, it would be the applicant and, well, the mother was the applicant on behalf. She was the guardian for the adult son. So in this case, the applicant didn't want it to be in executive session. So she wanted it to be out in the open. So everything took place in the open. Last time executive session was used. So we are sensitive to the fact that there's health information and medical records that wouldn't necessarily want to be, they're confidential by law, and so we would keep them confidential. But in this case, she waived that, wanted that waived. So and also the second element is, whether it's necessary to afford that person or group an equal opportunity to use and enjoy a dwelling. Some of that might involve the medical information as well. So that part might also be dealt with in executive session if they did not want everything to happen in public. And then whether or not the accommodation is reasonable, that is 3 years ago, the part that made the request be denied. A reasonable accommodation is a change in some rule that is generally applicable so as to make its burden less onerous on the handicapped individual. But also as part of that law, it's an accommodation is not reasonable if it would be a fundamental alteration in the zoning or impose an undue financial or administrative burden. So last time the board felt that the accommodation requested in that specific case would be unreasonable in the zone and with the situation that the person was in. In the current one, the board didn't find that way. They didn't find that it would be, they found that it was reasonable. And so the accommodation was granted and the applicant was granted a reasonable accommodation from that ordinance that didn't allow foul. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the basics. And this accommodation is for this person only and at this residence only. It wouldn't carry over if the handicapped person moves. It wouldn't stay with the residence. And and it wouldn't go to the next residence if they moved, for example, to another place in the urban residential area of Bangor. So that's the whole story.
So the accommodation is tied to the address because the accommodation, those three elements have to be specifically looked at that particular.
Yes,
For the
it's tied to the individual
Yeah.
and the
That
address.
address.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because if the individual were to move, then they may need to go
Yeah.
through this process. all
They
over
may,
again.
but there are places you can move to in Bangor where you can have chickens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is just for the area that you can't have chickens,
Yeah.
you know, but this person
The
can.
urban part of
Yeah.
the city.
Right, yeah.
I have a question about the application process.
Yes,
Obviously, based on what I'm hearing from you, this person found that the application process, again, I'm making assumptions based on what I'm hearing you say, so correct me if I'm wrong, but they found it to be burdensome in some way, and that's why they went to the Human Rights Commission. Is that?
the only way that I could see that it was burdensome was because she went to the Human Rights Commission. She talked about it being a battle, but I mean, it wasn't a battle. It was
Right,
that she didn't just do the process.
right.
And we would have helped her with the process, and we did. I did. And so
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't agree with that part of the newspaper.
I just think it's
Well-
perception.
Well, no, that's not my question, actually. I just.
The application?
Yeah.
Yes. But
Can you see
actually, I
what the
don't know.
application
I
says?
sent it to her by email.
That was more my question. was
I should
like,
have brought the
what-
application.
Well,
It's
my question
so
is like,
easy.
if we're working with individuals with disabilities, right, and they need accommodations to be made, how many ways are there
Correct.
for them to submit the application to you? Is it just via email? Is it on paper? Like,
It's both.
so are we? And I'm not, this isn't like a gotcha question. I'm truly wondering like how many, are we doing everything in our possibility to make it as truly easy as possible? And is there any feedback that we could take from this experience that would have said, okay, yeah, maybe that is a burden on an individual to have to, present this information? Is there anything like in terms of supports or, I mean, obviously, you appear to be very supportive and available and, walking them through it, which is great. But like, is that where the perceived challenge was?
If it's not on the pages here, we could put it on there. That would be something that we could.
Yeah.
less
Yeah,
burdensome,
definitely.
You know,
I mean, one of the things that I'm thinking about too is, where you said the Board of Appeals requires 3 things. Just looking at this, like, how would you define proof of being handicapped? Because handicaps look different for all individuals depending on like what it is that they're
I'm
dealing with.
assuming this
So-
language is somehow tied to ADA, correct? Like the
It's
link.
It's tied to the
the
fair.
fair housing.
Fair housing.
Yeah. So a lot of
Okay.
these things is language that's derived from there. It's also not uncommon to find similar requests, if you're looking for accommodations in employment and things like
Right,
that. They
right,
speak similar.
Right.
So-
There have been accommodations for sober houses from
Mhm.
one of our ordinances that says in the urban residential district, you can only have no more than 5 individuals who are unrelated, and so they requested accommodation from that.
Yeah.
And that has happened multiple times.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So just like, under the second bit, whether it's necessary for the individual, I feel like answering that question even could look different depending on the situation. And
Oh, yeah.
it could be that for whoever, I don't know the specifics of this case, but in filling out that paperwork, there are pieces of this where I can see how that might be overwhelming for someone.
The 3 elements aren't in the paper.
Okay,
It's just like I said, it's just an application with the basics,
Right.
and I should have brought it and I didn't. It just says, which ordinance do you need the accommodation for and what accommodation do you
Yeah.
need? It's like a
Okay.
1-sentence thing. The
Okay.
elements are the law. And
What they
that,
have to use
and
when
I-
they evaluate it.
and I would explain that at the beginning of the proceeding, and I would explain it on the phone ahead of time. You say, how do you prove it? There are different ways you can prove it. This particular individual proved it. She brought her son here. And it was obvious. She probably didn't need to say anything. That the person was handicapped. But you can prove it with a medical record. You could prove it with there are different ways. The doctor could be here, the medical record, a letter, you know.
My question was solely about like the accessibility of the application
Mhm.
process,
Yeah,
which, you know, having it online, being able to talk on the phone, like, I just wanted to know, like, how clear is it that there are multiple avenues?
well, it's also available by paper at the code enforcement office, so.
Yeah, well, maybe, and maybe I'm wrong in this. I know in one of a meeting many years ago of this committee, you know, we had people talk about, they would literally sit with people and write out the application for them if they were unable to fill them out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Is that what you're really
Yeah.
kind of asking? Like,
Yeah.
are we making that
Yeah.
available to everyone?
Well, yeah, I mean, myself or my assistant Mary would certainly do that. you
yeah,
know,
no, that's,
would help them, you know, get through it because it's really basic information that goes on.
And I think a point of clarification in this situation is that the person who was filling out the paperwork was not the disabled individual. It was the parent of the disabled.
right.
And that would
individual.
probably be
The
the
Fair
case.
Housing Act, chances are that it's going to be related to an individual that,
And as someone who has worked with these particular things before, this is very common question, like it's not uncommon to have to provide some sort of documentation for them. And I think, you know, part of what we are make, at least from my perspective, and I hear everyone else saying is, are we doing all that we can to ensure that people are trying to get more accommodations or their needs met? Are we doing everything we can to make sure we're offering what we can, you know?
Yeah,
And how often does this actually come up? I think how often do you get requests for?
well, I've been here just less than 2 years and we've had a number of them in the other contexts I've mentioned with the, for the sober house.
Mhm.
This was the first one with an emotional support animal.
Mhm.
Since I've been here, but like I said, 3 years ago, before I was here, there was another one.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are any others besides that for the emotional support animals,
Yeah.
but, and I don't know if there were others that I'm not aware of before I was here,
Mhm,
but it's come up a number of times since I've been here.
mhm.
right? Thank you.
All right,
Yes,
thanks.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about the lack of technology.
Oh, no,
no,
that's okay. Debbie can get us a copy of the application.
Yeah, if
Sure.
you want to send me the copy.
Yeah, I can
Yep.
send, yeah. No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for staying.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Thanks for
Thanks.
staying. Yeah. Courtney, did you say that the application wasn't online?
It doesn't appear to be, which, actually,
Oh.
now I'm a little excited.
segue there.
It's a great segue, yeah. So, we just kicked off a process. We just, awarded an RFP to redo our website.
Yeah.
It's
Civic
like
Plus?
a Civic Plus,
Okay.
yes. They have lots of experience working with municipalities. They're very used to the systems that we use and our needs and things. It's a 6 to 8 month process, but one of the things that we are hoping to streamline and make easier are things like the forms and the policies along with the applications and all that stuff. So this is actually kind of exciting for me. I've been making some notes, making sure. But I also wanted to just real quick point something out that kind of ties in to what the city solicitor was talking about. And under under request, you can click accessibility and accommodations. And it will actually provide folks that are accessing our services, programs, activities, a way to actually make a request. And of course, they could call, walk in. We're working on an online form. And there's also a complaint process as well now that is laid out there.
Do we
And-
have that on the homepage, the accessibility part, or is it still a click through to get?
So we have it under city news right now,
Okay.
but we can definitely make it more prominent for sure.
Yeah, that's hard to find unless you
and-
know.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, at this point, we're not investing a whole lot of time into this website because it really just needs to be replaced. But in the meantime, absolutely, we can make it more accessible.
Katie?
Nice.
I'm very excited to hear more about this RFP and Civic Plus. Is it, and especially in terms of disability, like, or accessibility rather?
Yeah,
I'm assuming that a lot of what will go into this updated website will be the ability to have talk to text and like have it be read for individuals that maybe, you know.
yes.
obviously
And actually, that is
feature.
something that Civic Plus is like really on the
They're-
forefront
they're
of
really good.
because they've created websites for all sorts of municipalities with similar needs, wanting to make sure that it's accessible as possible for everyone. So options to like change the text to a different language and, you know, the chat box, it's-
Fabulous.
Yeah.
But
certainly
too,
very
you said that, because that would be something very helpful, because
Yeah,
if
if you
you're
don't
trying
know
to,
where
like,
you're,
yeah, you're like, I'm
go.
trying to
Yeah.
find, how do I do?
Right.
I don't know, like,
Yeah.
I think there's so
Mhm.
much information because.
Yeah,
How do I do X, Y, and Z? And it
Yeah.
can pull up the links
Right.
for you.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, this is really exciting. This website has been around a very long time. It's well past due to be replaced. But actually, I think it's great timing because a lot of this stuff is, you know, it's at the forefront of our awareness, and with, you know, input from this committee and others, we're really looking forward to making it as robust and accessible as possible. So it kind of tied in what he was talking about, and actually now I have some ideas. His what he was talking about was a reasonable accommodation related to our zoning and things, which is a little different than like a program or service we're offering. But I think there's an ability to kind of tie it all together and make it as easy as possible for folks. Okay, I need an accommodation for regardless of what it
Doesn't
is,
matter what
but
it
I can
is.
find it
Yeah.
easily, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And kind of speaking, similar to that, another nice little segue is that the website will also have what's called an intranet, which is, it's like an internal platform for our employees.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Which is,
training and things on there?
yeah.
Maybe.
It'll have links.
Like, wait, I'm sorry.
She said you're gonna put training.
Oh,
Because
sorry.
we're
I thought
talking
you said
about-
you do trainings.
Oh, no. Because we're, part of the thing here is just,
Yeah.
disability employment, and that's one of the things we were talking about is like trainings and things like that, right?
Mhm.
Is this gonna be one of the, because I know you've been talking about HR platforms as well. Is this gonna be a mechanism to be able to get these things?
So, it could be, right now, the main, way that we communicate with employees is either directly, face to face, or, email. And to have an intranet will allow us to upload all sorts of resources, you know, modules for training potentially down the road and other avenues so that an employee can log in and immediately know what's going on in the city. They have all the relevant information of what's going on. And that will tie into our HRIS system, our Human Resources Information System, which is more specialized or specific to the employee in terms of like you could update your W-4 or W-2, excuse me, you know, any other tax forms, you can look at your benefits, all that stuff. So it's a little more specific, but in theory, they should be able to talk to each other as
You
well.
were in the middle of an RFP for that, correct? Your
Yes,
HRIS.
and it was, well, we were in the process of getting funding for it,
Okay.
which was approved by the council. We have not yet put that out to RFP because we can only do so many things at once. But it is on the list, and it's really nice knowing that it's funded and ready. And I think doing the website with the internet first
Yeah.
and then making sure that that will tie into whatever HRIS system along with our financial system and all that other stuff. Is really like some great strides in the right direction, in my opinion, to the benefit of everyone, right? Because the more supported our employees are, the more readily accessible they are, and they feel included and educated and communicated with, the better they can turn around and help our citizens, right, with the services and programs that they provide. I can tell you have a question.
Well, I actually don't have a question. I have a comment. This is the same kind of system that the Northern Light Hill system uses.
Mhm.
We have an internet page, and like I've been working in the system for 7 years. The whole time I've been there, they've always had this system. And you're right, like everything you're saying, it 100%, it helps with communication. It creates like a centralized place
Yeah.
for things to be kept. The tool that I really like the most about it is that you can have, I don't know what system you guys are gonna be using for this exactly, but you can create links off of the internet page. So like for updating HR information,
Oh,
for
yeah.
finding
Certain forms.
certain
Yeah.
forms, for finding you know, your rights or policies, like whatever it is
Yeah.
that you're looking for. It
Cool.
can be linked off of that internet
Yeah.
page. So yeah, it is an
It's-
amazing tool.
Absolutely. And I hope too that like right now, you know, somebody has to actually speak to somebody for that information or dig through their email. It's not very friendly.
It's a nightmare.
And you know, there's always somebody that really just doesn't want to talk to somebody. They just want what they need and they want to be able to move on. And an internet will allow them to do that.
Is this only city employees, or is it extending down to
No,
committees?
it's just city.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe down the road, there's an add-on or something, but for right now, Yeah, the internet is specific to employees.
And the Civic Plus, the new website, is this also, are they the ones who are gonna be doing the mobile app or? is that
Mhm.
something-
Yeah, so actually, part of that upgrade, why it's so robust and is gonna take so long, is it's not just a website, it's also our mass notification system. It's our, oh, I was on Q
Q Alert.
Alert, but that's a brand name for us, a
Correct.
platform.
The service request.
request system, yeah.
Okay.
And there's one other piece I'm forgetting, but yeah, it's really meant to kind of, oh, and it's a updated app as well, from our Go Bangor app.
Mhm.
So it's really meant to be kind of a robust, like, upgrade to our communications as a whole, which I think is just instrumental, now in terms of communication. So related to all of that, I think there's also a request to kind of chat through real quick, I think, how we make reasonable accommodations for our employees. So just kind of chat through that process briefly. You know, it usually starts with some sort of notification, either directly from the employee or another employee to HR. We then will engage directly with the individual in what's called an interactive dialogue or process. And we will go back and forth, learning all sorts of information, you know. What's first, you have to start with, like, what is their job? What's the essential functions of that job? What kind of accommodation are they requesting? Does that impact the essential functions? You know, is there a medical piece that you need to take into account? Is it short-term or permanent? I mean, there's all sorts of information meant to kind of suss out exactly what is needed in a situation and is it reasonable? Now, the definition of a reasonable accommodation varies depending on, you know, your organization, the request, all that sort of stuff, but is primarily related usually to financial burden or not a burden, depending. And then also the administrative side of it. I will say, just to give a few examples, a few common reasonable accommodations that we frequently see and manage are things like, you know, the chairs, ergonomical chairs. We go through a whole assessment and you know, that's a reasonable accommodation that we can make, is to swap somebody's chair out. Sometimes it can be something like somebody's sensitive to fragrances, and what can we do to help mitigate that? We may not be able to say, like, move the person, or you know, we can't control always what citizens walking in on the street do, but we can add signage, we can educate employees, you know, we can take steps to help make that reasonable accommodation for their work environment. And then another common one is parking as well, because as you all know, our parking lot's down the street, and you know, there's some folks that is a burden to, and so we engage in that interactive dialogue, and figure out, you know, what can we reasonably accommodate, which is often closer parking, right? So more often than not, it may or may not be like a super formal process. Oftentimes, like, you know, if an employee says, you know, oh, the screen, I think it's really, you know, giving me headaches, we might just buy, you know, a dimmer to go on their monitors. We're not gonna go through this lengthy, you know, process, when we could buy a $15 dimmer that goes on the monitor. So, you know, like I said, depending on the severity and the accommodation request, you know, we try to be as flexible as possible. And of course, we do this all across the city, not just here at City Hall, but, you know, Public Works, Public Health, the airport, like all sorts of different areas. So it can look very different depending on the location, what the job is, what the accommodation request is. And I just have to give a shout out to Jan, which is a nonprofit called it's the Job Accommodation Network. So they are fantastic at, like, perhaps an employee knows they need some sort of an accommodation to perform those essential job functions, but they're not really sure what that might look like. And Jan is a great resource to kind of figure out maybe, you know, what some resources are to help address that accommodation. Because oftentimes it could be something, in fact, we had an example where somebody out at the airport wanted to work a job that required lifting baggage regularly, and they had, you know, a physical issue. and that, that resource, alerted us to, actually like a small machine that actually lifted the burden off them that would create, in our opinion, a reasonable accommodation because it wasn't, super expensive and it allowed them to fulfill the essential functions. So it can really vary quite a bit, but this is very common. We do it all the time. And this is another benefit of the intranet is that you can streamline that process for individuals that may not know that an accommodation might be available to them, but could really benefit from it.
Yeah, because that is very common. Like people will just assume, be like, oh, well, guess I can't do this.
Yeah.
Walk away. And when there are ways, it's just a matter of making those tools available.
I think too, we're kind of moving toward I know for example, sit-stand desks are very common. Just because we all know it's better to be standing up, or throughout your day. Doesn't mean everybody wants one, but it's also, pretty well accepted at this point that, they're beneficial.
Absolutely. Can I ask a question, maybe two questions about the forward-facing website changing?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Will this app talk to the Community Connector app?
No, that's separate.
Okay. Well,
So the, I would have loved that. Most companies, certainly the RFPs we received for the municipal website package, they're not in the transit world. And those that we receive bids from for the transit tech RFP are not doing websites for municipalities. They're focused on transit. So they will be separate, unfortunately. But we did award that bid to a very well-known company in the transit world called Passio. And things like automated announcements, and scrolling, in time with scrolling message boards, things like that will be incorporated along with the app for the Community Connector specifically, but it will give you for example, the location of the bus in real time, where the closest bus stop is. I mean, it's and that's another really big piece. And of course, the Community Connector receives federal funding, so they also have a lot of requirements from the federal government, and rightfully so, to ensure accessibility and accommodations as well. So that is, like I said, they're kind of separate, unfortunately, but we hope that the value for each or both is there for folks, and that, I would love to see the ridership for Community Connector increase. And I think for a lot of folks, having that app is going to be a game changer. I know teaching my niece how to ride the bus with the old paper maps was quite a challenge. I'm just saying. And she would, I think she'd pick it up so much easier if she could just type in her location.
A lot.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, I didn't know there was an app.
There isn't yet.
No,
It's in the
it's-
works.
yeah.
Yeah.
I work at ENCC. We have stopped there. It's one of the frequent questions we get started beginning of the school year.
Right.
Is when does it?
That's gonna be huge.
Yeah.
Because I think right now I
What's the
usually have
timeline on
more thoughts, but.
On the app itself, I'm not really sure. We just awarded the RFP. We're settling the contract now. It could be up to a year realistically, unfortunately.
I have a second question. If not, I have a question.
I have a question about the larger sort of process in terms of overhauling the website. Is that what you were gonna?
No.
Oh, you looked at me maybe.
No, we're just running low on time, so I just want to make sure that any and all questions are getting in.
I was just hopeful that, in that process, obviously, that we would be able to be more involved in providing what that feedback could look like and making sure.
Oh, I'm happy to include. this
Yeah,
committee.
yeah.
Absolutely. I would love it.
Committee related to.
I know. I just want to make
Actually,
sure
yeah,
that I
subcommittee
say
would be
it.
Yeah.
I say it out loud because it is something that
We have
I
two of
joined
them.
this
We have-
committee that I was really excited about being able to provide feedback.
There's
and
accessibility and
Ideas on,
human resources, probably under accessibility.
that's where I put my name in. So,
No, yeah, that would be fantastic.
awesome. Thank you.
So my actual question was related to the accommodation process for employment, and more specifically looking to the future, as more individuals are, not only, completing high school, they're completing college education, and they might be getting technical type degrees or things like that, they might not be a traditional 40-hour week. They might need less hours or, or something like that. Are we looking towards the flexibility in that regard for accommodations?
Yeah, sorry, that was something I left out. That is, yeah, the use of leave time is certainly an accommodation that we've made in the past for sure, for folks that may not be able to work those 40 hours. I will say that if it were to become permanent in certain areas, that may be considered an unreasonable accommodation, but in the short term, yes, we would
We do that
100% look at that.
frequently.
Yeah,
So I'm thinking of, I always use neurodivergent because it's the one closest to my home. If you have someone who can be productive in 20 hours a week worth of work for something that might be posted as full-time, how are you looking at that in the employment hiring process? Would you consider that person, would you extend benefits to that person if they could do that work? Because that's something that's very real. And if you look at the tech industry, they hire individuals with neurodivergent diagnosis. They don't necessarily work a full 40. They can be just as productive in a shorter period of time, but they still need access to benefits. And I think more and more of that will be in the future, the near future, I think.
Yeah.
So are we looking to that? Are we making plans for that? Are we coming up with ideas on how to address that? Because you could have employment comes from all populations,
absolutely. I think that's certainly something that we would always entertain a conversation with, but ultimately it comes down to the area, the type of job that you're talking about. Unfortunately, we do a lot with a little as a municipality, and that may not always be something that we can accommodate, but I think there's likely areas that we could have that conversation for sure.
Mhm. Is there anything else about Disability Employment Awareness Month, the website, those changes coming through?
I will be back.
Holding you to that.
All right.
Thank you, Courtney.
I'm just having you
Absolutely.
in the meetings.
I know, come back all the time.
So we are coming right up on time. Do we want to hop right down to manager?
I was gonna say, you
updates?
want to skip to the bottom and then we'll carry over the items. Just so folks know, the membership is updated for the appointments that were made
saw that.
last night. So you have a couple of new members who will join you on January 1st.
And are they getting the?
They will be now.
Babu.
And two of your existing members were renewed. And we have a new student member, so. School DEIB committee update, they are going to meet in November after the election. So they will
Next
restart
meeting.
that work and then circle back with an update with the committee as to what that work may look like in the coming year. Courtney did the website update. Hopefully you all saw that we had a public comment issue on September 11th. We had a subsequent conversation at the council about what public comment should look like. Because interestingly enough, there are a lot of places saying, we just need to shut public comment down. And we're like, no.
Can't do that.
Actually, there were people in the room that night that happened, and they said that the staff was so quick at shutting it down. And people were just over talking it to the point that they couldn't even hear what was said. So we're going to continue with our public comment process as it is, because it is important.
It was Portland who also had an issue
Yeah.
right
Many
around the
cities
same
did.
time.
Everybody, so it was sort of,
Oh, it was on.
it seemed to be a somewhat a coordinated approach in our state.
Okay.
And there were probably a dozen or more communities that were hit. But I think we responded quickly. Not every community uses Zoom in the way we do, where we have a panelist. So if you come in as a public and then we bring you over and unmute you, I think some communities were just using Zoom wide open. So anybody
Okay.
can speak, anybody can share.
Yeah.
And it led to a little bit of
That's chaotic.
it was.
So this issue, I'm out of the loop,
Yeah.
but this issue on the 11th was literally just because of a Zoom issue.
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people
Yes.
coming off of mute and
Yes.
saying like, now you're
Interrupting.
able to speak in public comment, and
Correct.
then they were.
So it was very hateful, spiteful
Mhm.
speech and it was a pre-recording and as soon as you could hear it, you just knew and we just slammed them all down. So,
Yikes.
yeah, so that was I just wanted to bring folks back because the council wanted to have a discussion about what they should do about public comment following that based on those concerns. And we had that conversation and the council has chosen to stay where we are.
Okay,
um,
Thank you.
appropriately. City Hall road relocation. So Jason is actually gonna be our landlord. So we're actually gonna move down the street to Pegbus, most of us.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So,
that's kind of fun.
so, that does a couple of things. It allows the contractors to move through the project more quickly. They're hoping to do it in 18 months. We also know, that we are gonna have, likely hazardous materials. It is an old building. It protects our employees. And finally, they actually offered a financial incentive if we would all leave. Okay.
Okay.
So we're moving down the street.
Temporary relocation.
So we all want, yes.
And what's the
Yes.
timing of that again?
So
Do you have it?
that continues to, so it's sometime likely in November. It'll be later towards the
Okay.
end of the month. And we updated the city council last night, that we are hoping that we're gonna be doing significant amount of messaging. We're waiting for Jason to tell us what day we can get in the building. And we've started to lay out where people will be. They're gonna outfit it, they're gonna prepare us. They're still moving some of their folks, rearranging some of their folks to accommodate us. So within the next 2 weeks, you should see a pretty, I should hope you see a pretty well laid out plan and a concrete communication. We'll have physical signage, because once they start construction here, they'll actually fence the entire thing off. As well, physical signage on that. We have message boards clearly. So we'll have message boards here directing folks. We'll have message boards down there directing folks.
Mhm.
And obviously,
It's good that if people take the bus to City Hall, they don't have to actually walk that far if they need to. Right, will meetings, city council
So they-
meetings?
Yep, we do have space there for city
Okay.
council meetings. The one thing that will look a little bit different is for right now, for example, our city council meetings, we're broadcasting on Zoom, we're broadcasting on Facebook, and we're also broadcasting direct to our government access channel. The connection to our government access channel is in this building. So we will not be live broadcasting on our government access channel. But what we have talked about is creating a very defined schedule. So for example, if on a Monday night council meeting, every Monday night's council meeting, we'll schedule it to rebroadcast on Tuesday night, perhaps at the same time. So if as an individual, you're used to watching your council meeting at 7:30 on Monday night, it will be replayed for you at 7:30 Tuesday night,
Mhm.
because we just can't accommodate the live broadcast. We're also likely gonna take this as an opportunity. Frankly, all we ever did was broadcast on TV until the pandemic. And then it was Facebook and it was Zoom, and all of these things are great and have created greater access points. But I think we've added all of those access points without taking a step back and saying, all right, should we look at a different way to do this digitally? So I think we're gonna be looking at moving over to YouTube TV. Because clearly that's where folks are. Not that we still won't have a Zoom component so that we can allow people to comment, but, and trying to just, because right now we store all of our videos through this other provider. If we go to YouTube TV, it's just a link, the storage space is there. It's a much more effective and efficient way for us to do that, so. But we're gonna lay all of that out. I think we're about 30 days out from probably the actual move. There is public space at Penquist that we'll be able to use for our council chambers. We'll be able to accommodate meetings in person. We'll be able to accommodate the public. We'll be able to accommodate our subcommittee groups. So we're all sitting around doing this.
So it's really just the government channel that's
It
going to
is
be
really just the
affected,
government
so.
channel. But we're gonna take it as an opportunity to maybe look at
Yeah.
using YouTube TV at this point.
Yeah.
Which
I-
is just not what we had. At the point of the pandemic, it was just. What do we do?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is here and we're gonna do this and that's what we can do.
I was gonna say, what's the government channel?
Exactly.
What is this? Where do I find it? Is this
Yeah.
cable? I haven't had that in 10 years. like,
Exactly.
Okay,
But we know we have people who connect that way. And
Yeah.
that's how they watch.
and that's
how
very
they
important
connect.
for people.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
So,
okay. Yeah, as long as we're figuring out an alternative.
yeah. So
Then,
we're really looking at how we're gonna stagger the broadcast, and the thought is to just move everything a day. So if somebody's used to Monday, now it's on Tuesday. If
Yeah.
somebody's used to Tuesday, now it's on Wednesday.
Yeah, for our older population, I think that's very important.
Yeah.
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 Great.
And since the election's right around the corner, the absentee box is not moved, it's in the same
That is correct.
location.
And that was the other thing, and we were,
Yeah.
even as we were looking at coming up to talking about relocation is, it was from the get-go, we wouldn't, even if it were ready, we would not relocate prior to the election. We do not need to create any sort of voter confusion. Because in the middle of an election cycle, to say, well, today we're here and tomorrow we're there,
No.
is really disingenuous.
Mhm. Anything else you'd like to update us on before we close
No.
the meeting? We're 7 minutes after.
And I have a couple of other topics for your next meeting too. already.
In addition to approving the minutes from
Yeah.
September.
Yes.
October. Is there anything else from the committee before we close the meeting today? No? Can I get a motion to?
I just like, I just want to address, I know we're out of time, but last night, city council meeting with all of the feedback on housing and what the city's been doing and where we're at with that. For me personally, I feel like it's a great opportunity for our committee to address our ability and our role to actually either provide more guidance to city councilors, be more active in that positioning. I know that we get city manager updates, but there has to be a way that we as an advisory committee can be more on the front end of things in terms of actually connecting with city councilors, providing this feedback, advising, giving that feedback. There's been a couple, I feel like, missed opportunities for our committee to be involved in providing our direct feedback, to be able to say, oh, this is exactly what we wanted to say about ARPA. This is exactly what we thought was best practices for, the decisions to move encampments.
Or clear them
It,
and the language around it.
yeah, I feel like we've been missing opportunities to get involved and be ahead of it.
Yep.
As opposed to just, what's the reaction? What do we, there's nothing that we can't Monday morning quarterback
Correct.
everything that happens on council. And I also recognize that when we tell council things, it doesn't mean they're gonna do it. But I feel like our committee would be better serving if we were actually able to have these conversations or relay, and maybe creating a structure for that. I don't know what the right way to do that is, but it was just one more example I felt of a missed opportunity for us to actually have been involved in the process and maybe be able to say, yes, this is exactly hey, if this is the way that things are gonna go down, I feel like we should know about it so that we can provide
Agreed.
feedback
No.
and directions.
And I think maybe what we can do, because Leanna and Katie and I sort of meet 2 weeks out.
Yeah,
And I think if we can kind of go through the mental, not even just the mental, but make sure that we have a point in time to have those conversations. What's coming up? Is there anything that we haven't talked about, or do you see anything
Right.
coming down?
right.
And, sometimes we are just going on to the next
Right,
thing. So if you're
right.
seeing something, if you're hearing something and other things, having that conversation up front, I think would be really great.
And I think, it also acknowledging the fact that we only meet once a month.
Yeah.
Versus council who meet twice a
Right.
month, and they also have their committees and everything that they're involved in. I think also really utilizing these subcommittees that we have developed,
That is,
Yeah.
I think, the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like if we have a subcommittee, because I know that we can't say like, oh my gosh, something's gonna happen on the 23rd. We all have to quickly meet.
Right.
I recognize the struggle in that, but if, yes, we had our subcommittees that could be very present in those conversations.
Right.
To be able, especially because there is a housing subcommittee that I feel like,
Yeah.
having the opportunity to be involved in those and give that feedback. So I don't know if it's a matter of us just, what are we waiting for, essentially, is my question. Like, how can we activate these subcommittees so that we're not just,
So what part of it, so let's talk about the housing ones, for example. So for example, we've got right now the housing RFP out. is let's wrap the subcommittee into that housing RFP discussion.
Okay.
Because, is there a way, so it's not unusual for us when we do things, to incorporate, public feedback and public input.
Yeah,
So why would we not utilize the subcommittee structures
yeah,
for that purpose?
Yeah.
You are A, members of the public, you are also B, coming with your lens of equity and inclusion and your own personal backgrounds. I think it adds a lot to that.
And I also would charge the committee members as well, if you hear things that somehow didn't get to
Right.
you, reach
yeah.
out to Debbie. Or,
Or reach out
Katie
to
and
all
I.
of us, because
Yeah.
I think it's incumbent upon all of us. It was like when Andre shared, oh, Anne's gonna be speaking at the trip. I'm like, oh my gosh, Andre, you're right. And oh,
Yeah.
by the way, she's also doing this the next
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
Her schedule is crazy.
It
Yeah.
is.
Because I think, you are one person who attends a lot of meetings, and Courtney is someone who attends, you all are doing things. And, I know I would feel an immense amount of pressure if I had to make sure that, individual thing, like every individual thing. And that's why I think part of creating these subcommittees is
Right.
super important as well, is because as committee members, on these subcommittees, you also, in theory, are attuned to some of these other, housing or these individual subjects that you're interested in. Like, we knew the RFP for the website was something that was coming through. We were
Right.
just waiting for the word on that,
Right. And you all had the RFP, you went through it, you made your recommendations. It took us way longer than any of us wanted to do.
But some of
that's
you are
okay.
involved in other groups and organizations, and that's why, I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you see it, you're empowered to raise it up, because that's how we work best as a committee. If we're all working together, getting that information together, getting.
One thing
information to
from
us.
the economic development meetings I try to attend when they happen is the comprehensive plan has a massive section, I would say, on housing and
Mhm.
strategy
Mhm.
moving forward for the
Mhm.
next couple of years. It's a good read. If you're not someone like me who digests information for fun, you might want to break that up a bit.
And actually, Anne had come in about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's definitely.
And
been here,
there's
but it's
more
great
that's
to
been
bring it.
added to since last time she was
See?
here.
That's good information to know, because that's an update to, something we've seen here in the
Mhm.
committee, so that's good for those of us who took the time to read all 200 pages of it. Knowing that there's been an update to it.
Yeah.
So I do want to empower all of you all to feel like you can
Yep.
bring
It
it
is.
together, bring it to everyone.
Yeah.
Anything else? I'm just checking online, making sure everything looks good. I think for the three of us, we'll also revisit this when we catch
Yeah.
up for our planning, our agenda.
And just so the other committee members know, so Katie, Leanne and I try to meet 2 weeks out from this meeting. So that we're not going a month without checking in.
Mhm.
So we talk at sort of that 2 week mark and say, okay, this is what I heard, this is well, what about this? Hey, I heard about
Yeah.
that.
And it would be really great if everybody had things that they
Yeah.
could.
And maybe what I do is ahead of time is, prompt the committee
Yep.
members.
Yeah.
Did you have anything that you've
Yeah.
thought of that's come up so that we can bring it forward to
Yeah.
that conversation?
The reason why you don't hear anything from when we first meet to when it gets sent out, it's because it is flexible. Things might come up, or
Correct.
someone we planned, like, come in to have speak or something, that might fall through or something to that effect.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we are always like, please, what's out there? What can we be looking at? What can we be
Yeah.
putting eyes to?
And we'll get welcomes out to our new
Yes,
committee members.
yes, yes.
And they'll start in January?
Yes.
All right.
And I do really like the idea of being able to work with specific committees on the council
Yeah.
about specific issues. If we
Yeah,
could move forward on that,
Mhm.
I think we should. Because if we could sit in on those meetings and be a voice and say, hey, why aren't we considering this?
Right.
And
Like the housing committee should go to all of that economic development.
And we can, understand that it's also economic development does all kinds of other things as well.
Right.
Yeah.
But making sure that we're making those connections.
Yeah.
And I would say.
Back to our subcommittees.
Yeah, to committee members, if you, maybe just every so often, if you're not sure when something's happening, the website does have the calendar of events, and they'll put the agenda out there for the meetings and things like that. So, you know, you always have the opportunity to see that, view it, watch it online if you're not comfortable going into the meeting, anything like that, you know, because they are all on Facebook.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's just another avenue, another mechanism for you to be engaged in what's happening. Yeah. Especially if you know it's particular topics coming through.
Yeah.
Anybody want to end this meeting?
Really quick, I'm so sorry. I know we're so late, but I know, I told.
That is her go-to move
I
tonight.
told, I know, right?
That
So I
is
don't wanna go
the
home.
key move.
No, I'm sorry. I promised, Theron that I would, he had wanted to bring to the Sear bus line. Do you remember this last meeting?
Yes,
Training?
yeah,
Yes, he wanted to know if there was like an update or something that he needed to do on his end that he could get, resources for, to Sear.
Mm.
And I said that I would follow up.
okay.
I don't know, who did we actually, did that get assigned to someone or we were just gonna look into it? Did we actually decide what training we were talking about?
No, I know we did
Okay.
not.
I'm like, I'm having a moment.
I recall the conversation. I just felt like it was something you were like, yes, that would be a good idea that we should do, but I don't recall us clearly
Coming to a
delineating.
conclusion anyways.
Yeah,
Correct.
because I think there's a lot of opportunity for trainings in a lot of different places. So
Yeah.
maybe we need to circle back with Ron about what they actually do receive for
Okay.
training and.
And actually too, what I'll do is, I'll go back and. Well, what's-
I know, right?
What are the minutes say?
No, I do not have them printed. They were not attached to the agenda, so. Weren't they? I only had this. You do have to just see them now?
Hold on.
I honestly never got a copy of the agenda. I've been reading yours.
And the email, I think I just got the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah,
Darn.
it's in my email buried somewhere.
Okay, bad.
Hold on, I have the minutes right.
And I didn't read it at all. You're all better than me.
So it's a good thing we're not voting on the minutes.
And so point of clarification,
Hold on.
you send the agenda and the meeting minutes and any other supplement documentation, usually the Thursday or Friday beforehand.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, we got it.
And we would really love it to make sure that everyone reads the agenda and reads documents, if at all possible. We know life is busy, but it is helpful if we all are seeing what we're looking at, especially if there's a big document.
Yes. First week, get a new job, not happening last week.
Oh, for
Oh,
sure.
congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, it was from the,
It was from
it
the,
was the webinar.
yeah,
Well,
sorry,
people
I'm
look up.
sorry. I thought that I was clear with that. The
Okay.
Wabanaki Youth and Cultural Center spoke with us about the pieces that they were, I'm so sorry. All coming back to me now, about the
Yes.
pieces that they were doing in terms of outreach. And Theron had said it's a great idea since, you know, they're both based in Old Town, your
Right.
line, just to be able to do some more trainings in terms of awareness, outreach. But he was like, I said that, and then nothing, I didn't know, if
Okay.
he didn't know if he was supposed to follow up where the.
All right,
So to that effect, I think it is a bigger conversation about training for SEER and because they're contracted, correct?
But this is the second time that we've talked about doing training for SEER
Mhm,
in terms of mental health,
mhm.
when the
When
school committee was here.
Yeah,
And now for, the Wabanaki Youth and Culture Center. So I feel like maybe that's something that we just need to meet with Theron about separately.
And maybe also find out if the school's actually taken any steps on that, which we could get from there as well, I think. Because I do think there's plenty of opportunities, but obviously because they're contracted, what we can ask or require is.
right. I think that was why he was very excited, because he was gonna be on the inside.
Yeah, he's gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
So I want to get him
Yes, we do.
the
need to
right
get him.
people to
Yeah.
get those trainings into here.
Okay, Katie,
I see him every day, twice a day.
are we okay to end this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.